Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session of SecPod webcast. I'm Sakshi, your host. Through SecPod webcast, we bring you the latest happenings at SecPod and exciting stuff we are working on to prevent cyber attacks for enterprise IT security teams globally. Today's session is on Annual Vulnerability Report Insights 2022. I would like to introduce Virendra and Pooja, our experts from SecPod Security Intelligence team. They're here to talk to you about trends and analysis of vulnerabilities discovered last year from January 2022 to December 2022, this year. Before we begin, I would like to remind you all that a recorded version of this webinar will be available on Bright Talk and our YouTube channel. We will also send a recording to your email after this session so you can watch it and share it with others in your team. Towards the end of the webinar, we will have a Q&A session where we would love to hear from you. Any questions that you have asked throughout the session or even at the end, Virendra and Pooja will be excited to answer those. You can post your questions in the chat box below your Bright Talk player anytime. So for those of us joining now, today in this session we will be discussing top vulnerabilities of 2022. It would be dependent on the CVSS score. Also, how much of your SecPod security team has covered and analyzed 2023 vulnerability product predictions. This is what I'm much more excited about and I'm looking forward to it. And at the end of the webinar, we'll be discussing all the questions and answers regarding all your doubts. So we can start with our agenda. We also have annual vulnerability report available on our website. So you can just go ahead, check our website and download this vulnerability report in which we have discussed, analyzed the top vulnerabilities of last year based on the CVSS score, the top affected products and vendors as well as applications, your SecPod security team analysis for those vulnerabilities, and key insights and predictions. For example, the impact of those vulnerabilities on organizations, etc. Now, I would like to state the key findings of our SecPod's research team. So last year, we have seen a huge jump of vulnerabilities discovered that were about 26,288 vulnerabilities, in which 37 were zero-day vulnerabilities that are coming out to be 3 zero-day vulnerabilities on an average per month, which is huge impact to be taken by any IT security team of any organization. Among those total vulnerabilities discovered, 191 vulnerabilities were widely exploited and 124 were malware exploiting vulnerabilities. All of these are alarming numbers in the market. Continuing on the vulnerability trends, we have around 14,170 vulnerabilities with critical and high severity as per CVSS score. So all these vulnerabilities have a CVSS score of 7 and above. Again, this is an alarming number. Of these total vulnerabilities, we have 137 vulnerabilities with public exploit available. Moving on, I will be giving this presentation to Pooja. Pooja, please take this ahead.
Yes, thank you, Sakshi. We're looking at the chart that speaks about vulnerabilities that were identified in the past 3 years. So, Sakshi already quoted that we saw 26,288 vulnerabilities in 2022. That is a sharp increase of 20% from 2021 and 32% from 2020. So, on an average, if you were to take the vulnerabilities reported in 2022, we see that 72 vulnerabilities are reported every day, which can be very huge for any security team to be able to cover, detect, patch, and handle.
Uh, so, Pooja, in the last
Yes.
slide, if we go and
Mhm.
check, I see
Yes.
that the rate of increase in vulnerabilities, as you have quoted, is approximately twice from 21 to 22 to 20 to 21. So, what do you think that what was the reason of this rise in number?
So, Sakshi, if you were to go back and look at the earlier years, the number of vulnerabilities have always been increasing. One major reason that I can think of is because we are creating more and more softwares every day, and any software, any product that is released would be released, packed and released with bugs. Though we give a lot of importance and priority to code review, secure coding practices, pen testing internally, finding vulnerabilities, but there is no software package that can be 100% secure. So, as and when a new software is released, it is also released with bugs or vulnerabilities. So, since we have seen a huge number of softwares being published, I think that is one of the major reasons why we do see a surge in vulnerability count year by year. Another major reason I would attribute is the mature bug bounty programs that are being conducted by all the major organizations to ensure that there are no critical or major issues within their product. So, since these are so mature, a lot of vulnerabilities get reported then there as well, which I believe is a factor that adds to the surge that we see year on year. Also, a small percentage could be because attackers are also trying sophisticated attacks, trying to discover or uncover more vulnerabilities and use them. So, yes, all of this adds, and that is the reason I believe why we are seeing this surge. I hope I cleared your doubt. I'm moving to the next slide. So, our next slide is on vulnerability severity distribution based on CVSS V3. So, if you were to see at this chart, you can see that critical and high severity vulnerabilities have almost doubled. Critical has almost doubled, like 59% is the hike that you see from 2021 to 2022. Similarly, the high severity vulnerabilities also have increased, while the low and medium severity have a very, like low severity, you see a very marginal gap, and even medium is not as huge as you see with respect to high or critical.
Pooja, I see that in this slide when we are comparing low, medium, high to critical, the curve of critical is not following the same order and slope of the curves of low, medium, and high, because I can see that everything is gradually increasing all the numbers for low, medium, and high severity vulnerabilities, but critical we saw a dip in 2021 and then a huge jump in 2022. Do you
I
think
think
so? Is a reason? Yeah.
Yes, I think one of the major reasons that you see that there is such a big surge, especially in critical or high severity vulnerabilities, is mainly because of the bug bounty programs. Everybody is interested in getting the critical vulnerability out, while they give low priorities to something that is not very critical or low, because monetary benefits are the obvious reasons why anybody would prefer uncovering or discovering a critical or a high vulnerability. Having said that, I do not believe that low severity vulnerabilities are the ones that we can afford to neglect. mainly because any attacker who's trying to enter into my network first uses these low severity vulnerabilities to set a foothold into the network. Once they have entered the network, that is when the remote code execution or privilege escalation vulnerabilities are used for further exploitation. So while most of us are busy patching, busy reporting, I believe most bug bounty programs as well, which uncover low severity vulnerabilities, are not prioritizing, instead ignoring them. At the same time, we also, when we are applying patches, we are looking for only the severe, high critical vulnerabilities. Yes, we should be giving more importance to them, but we are more or less ignoring the low severity vulnerabilities, which is ensuring that attackers can enter the network.
That's interesting. Thanks, Pooja.
Okay. Yes, over to you, Virendra. Virendra?
Yeah. Thank you, Sakshi and Pooja. The stats were very insightful. Let's try to understand the what are the top operating system and application in which vulnerabilities are discovered in 2022. So as you can see, there are in the graph there are a number of Windows versions which are affected with numerous vulnerabilities. So Windows is the most used operating system. As we can see in the graph, Windows has the highest number of vulnerabilities when we all combined all Windows versions, which is around 10K plus. So next to that is Mac OS, which is around 1,431 vulnerabilities. And next, apart from that, third one is Linux kernel, uh, which is 1,143. So apart from this, we can also see that Android contributes around 3,000 approximately. So the reason is majority of the people are using Android mobiles, and even uh, everybody non-techie guys also use Android mobiles. They don't need to understand technical details for using operating system. So that's one of the reason Android also is that many vulnerabilities are discovered or reported last year. So next one is application. Let's check about what kind of applications are mostly reported. As we can see in the graph, top ones are the browsers, which includes Chrome and Firefox. Why? Because as the cloud adoption is increasing day by day, applications are being migrated to the cloud. To access the cloud application, we need internet browsers. So that's the reason the popularity of the internet browsers increased drastically due to the cloud adoption compared to earlier. Hence, the Chrome has 958 vulnerabilities in 2022, and Firefox and Firefox ECR combined together, it's around 631 vulnerabilities. In application browser, in application, apart from browsers, the leading one is Adobe Reader, which is contributing around 594 vulnerabilities in 2022.
So, Virendra, according to you, according to security researchers and threat actors, which is their favorite applications?
In my view, I cannot say one specific application, but I can say group of applications like web applications, network and security devices, and browsers are favorite uh, groups amongst the security researchers or threat actors.
And according to you, why are these particular applications are being targeted?
Okay, security researchers, threat actors' favorite applications are the ones which that are widely used frameworks, applications, network and security devices, browsers, because of their high usage and impact. To give a little bit about each of these things, Internet Explorer, as explained some time back, Internet Explorer are the favorite applications for security researcher and threat actors. Nowadays, we can consider if browser is compromised, uh, uh, consider the whole system is compromised, because most of the things we are accessing all the cloud applications, or most of the work is being done using a browsers. So when it comes to web applications, the major reason is most of the web applications can be accessed remotely. So when we can access remotely, it can be exploited remotely. So it's easy for the threat actors to exploit those vulnerabilities. And also the cloud adoption is increasing day by day. So that is also leading to more web application being developed, or migrating existing application from local to a cloud. So that's these are the things. And to give few web application examples which are exploited in 2022 are like Apache Struts and Adobe Commerce, aka Magento. So security researchers are finding vulnerabilities in these applications due to its wide usage and popularity. Even in 2021, there were various critical vulnerabilities were reported in Apache Struts. So, if go back and see last year and last to last year, I can see the Apache Struts all was there always. It was one of the top application, because it works as a framework. So when it's a framework, so it is used in developing many of the products. So that is a reason for web application. And network and security device, of course, these are the critical application or devices which without the normal operation of IT or anything will not work. And security device, of course, it is required to find out or stop malicious attacks or various other things. The network and security devices are also being targeted the most. In 2022, if we want to say, Sophos firewall with a CV 2022 1040 and dealing tutor with the two more CVs. These are the some three vulnerabilities which are critical vulnerabilities which are discovered in network devices and security devices. So these are just an example. There are many more into it. But why these are the main question is why these network device or security device are being targeted. One is high value and impact. So network device or a security device will have many confidential data into it. So if the threat actor or a security researcher able to find vulnerability, if security researcher able to find vulnerabilities, they will get as Pooja mentioned, they will get bounty, good bounty also. Plus, threat actors, if they were able to exploit the vulnerabilities in network or security devices, it will give them advantage of or control over complete network. So these all application network devices and security devices, many will be accessed over the network. So and easy for threat actors to exploit them if there is any uh, critical vulnerability presence. Once they exploit and take control of these network devices, it's easy for the threat actor to do a lateral movement in the network. So these are the few reasons we should consider web applications, browsers, and network and security devices. These are the groups which I feel are very important, and it attracts even security researchers for bug bounty programs and for threat actors to exploit the vulnerabilities and get some confidential data or do major damage to the organizations. So these are the reasons, Sakshi.
Thoroughly understood, Bind. Thanks.
Okay, going forward, going forward, let's go through the few 2022 vulnerabilities in brief. So, first one is unauthenticated remote code execution in Adobe Commerce, which is also called Magento. So, Adobe acquired this Magento application sometime back. So Adobe Commerce account Magento is an e-commerce website platform owned by Adobe that specializes in e-commerce websites used by approximately 170,000 online shopping websites worldwide. The CV 2022-24086 vulnerability was discovered in Adobe Commerce in February 2022. The vulnerability is due to improper input validation during the checkout process. The exploitation of this vulnerability does not require any authentication or user interaction, which makes it more dangerous. The exploitation of this vulnerability lead to remote code execution. According to security researcher, there were more than 17K vulnerable websites, and some of them from major businesses. So e-commerce, as you can see, it's an e-commerce application, and this vulnerability is unauthenticated, and user interaction is not required. And after exploiting this vulnerability, it is leading to RC. So combined together, e-commerce, unauthenticated, no user interaction, RC vulnerability. So this is a very deadly combination. So due to this combination, the attackers were already exploiting it in the wild with the three attack variants. CISA published an alert asking admins to patch this vulnerability after seeing these vulnerabilities being exploited in the wild. So what's the impact? After exploiting this vulnerability, threat actors were able to deploy web shells, RAT, remote code access, Trojans, PHP code execution. Literally, the wherever that application is hosted, it was the complete application was compromised. So that is on the first. So let's move on to the next one. So next one is an authentication bypass vulnerability in Sophos firewall. Sophos next gen firewall has a lot of capabilities. It can act as a firewall, for router, DHCP server, VPN server. Due to the increase in the popularity of Sophos XG firewall, this application is on traction among security researchers and threat actors. As we have seen, various vulnerabilities Sophos product are being discovered by the security researchers. So in March 2022, Sophos published an unauthenticated bypass vulnerability fixed in the Sophos firewall product. This vulnerability was reported via Sophos bug bounty program by the external security researcher, and the vulnerability has been fixed with a CVSS score 9.8. This vulnerability enables remote attacker to bypass authentication via firewall's user portal or web admin interface and execute arbitrary code. Within few days, Sophos also saw that there are wild exploitation going on, so it uh, uh, alerted the cybersecurity word on the warned about this vulnerability that it is being exploited in the wild. So there are few more vulnerabilities which will be briefed by Pooja. Over to you, Pooja.
Yes, Vero. So, this particular vulnerability is a local privilege escalation vulnerability in Microsoft Windows. This was particularly given a CCV ID of 2022 to 1882. The products affected were Windows 10, 1809 and above, all clients and servers. So now if I have any Windows device that I am using above 1809, which is a supported OS, I was affected. This vulnerability in particular was exploited using exploit that was already available for a vulnerability that was uncovered in 2021, which was 2021 1732. So the same exploit could be tweaked and used for this vulnerability as well. And it is a local privilege escalation vulnerability. So if you already have access or you have exploited some low privilege vulnerability or some other vulnerability and you do have access to the machine, then you can actually become admin in the machine. That is the impact of this vulnerability. Once privilege escalation is done, attackers can use it further for deploying malware, accessing any confidential information that is present in the machine. It was also observed that exploiting this vulnerabilities, admin users were being created, lateral movement was being done. And this particular CVE, since the exploit was taken from a previous known CVE, which was released almost a year back, the vulnerability was already under active exploitation when Microsoft published the patch or the advisory. So this was a 0 day when it came out and when we got to know about it. So it was already in active exploitation. Moving to the next CVE, we have a type confusion vulnerability in Apple's WebKit web browser engine. So this CVE was given a CVE ID of 2022 42856. And the products that were affected were Safari 15.3, iOS 15.3, and macOS 12.2 and earlier. So this particular vulnerability was actually fixed in 2013, and then in 2016 the fix was regressed. So again, this was a 0 day where it was under active exploitation when Apple released patches and published the advisory. We believe that it could be the attackers were actually going through the previous commits to understand if there is any flaw that is open and fell back on this, which was a previously known vulnerability. So both the vulnerabilities that I just shared are 0 days. So in case of 0 days, so ideally we know we have to patch our machines, we have to keep them secure, and we have to make sure that we cannot be exploited. But if it's a 0 day, there's not much that is in our area till we even know it, because we are not aware of a vulnerability that is being taken or used for exploitation. In that case, a product that can actually tell you that there is a port that is automatically getting opened, there is a service that has suddenly come up in one of your machines, is the product that actually can prevent further movement or lateral movement in case of 0 days. And I think I would just give a shout out to SecPod's CPAM solution, which can identify all such anomalies and tell you that in your network there is something that looks suspicious and draws your attention to that, so that if you feel that this service should not have come up here, or this particular user should not have been created in this machine, you can actually go ahead and separate that particular device from all the other in the network to protect and prevent lateral movement. Moving to the next CV. So this is a text-force shell RC in string substitutor interpolator class in Apache Common Text Library. Text-force shell was dubbed from Spring-force shell and the famous log-force shell. It is again, the affected product is a text library, again, which is used in other Java applications, mainly to handle string functions. But this particular vulnerability, though critical, was not as widespread because string substitutor is not as widely used as the string substitution in log4j, which led to the log4 shell. That being said, the main vulnerability was existent in the interpolator class, which was interpolating certain default strings like URL, DNS. You just could prefix this particular strings followed by your own commands and get complete access to the machine. So this can give you, since it can have a huge impact on confidentiality, integrity, and availability, this was a critical CVE, though not as widespread as Log4j. Next, we move on to, we already saw critical vulnerabilities in Windows, Mac, and also in a library. Right now, this is a Linux kernel KSMBD critical use after free remote code execution vulnerability. It was assigned a CD of 47939, and Linux kernel versions before 5.15.61 were known to be affected. KSMBD is basically a daemon, kernel daemon that is created for supporting the implementation of SMB3 protocol for sharing network files. This particular issue existed mainly because a struct was freed and its object reference continued. Basically, a dangling pointer, which could then be used for exploitation with uh, a little complex methods. Yes, Viru, over to you.
Thank you, Pooja. So let's try to check how what are the security intelligence, SecPod security intelligence coverage in 2022. In 2022, we have 85% of CV coverage, as we can see here, which is 741 out of 868, which is 85%. We have also developed 22,000 plus vulnerability detections and 2,938 misconfiguration detection routes. We have covered all the security patches for all the supported operating systems. For application and third parties, we have developed around 2000 remediation patches, combining application patches plus third party patches. Also, as a part of our new innovative product, continuous posture anomaly management, CPAM, in Sena now, we have developed 75 anomaly rules. This posture anomaly module will scan through the device information and apply AI ML techniques and various other rules to find out anomalies that are missed by the security products, giving a very good visibility of the complete network and the anomalies which need to be reviewed. So that is on the our coverage. Along with that, we have covered Windows CV wise. Windows coverage is 1,380. Linux it is 8,074, and Mac OS it is 2,416. So these are the coverage covered by the SecPod Security Intelligence team. Going to next, what are the 2022 milestones? So what we achieved in 2022. So as we understand, speed and accuracy both are very important in cybersecurity to detect latest vulnerability. On average, we have taken 24 to 30 hours to develop the detection for the latest vulnerabilities. 85% of the Microsoft and Apple vulnerabilities are covered in 30 hours. We have developed detection rules for all the published zero-day vulnerabilities in 24 hours, and 86% of these zero-day vulnerabilities can be patched using Senano solution. So our vulnerability detection accuracies around 99.98 in 2022, which means fewer false positives and less work for the security admins. Last but not the least, 1.1 billion scans are performed by our SenaNow agent across our customers, detecting critical vulnerabilities with, with the world's fastest vulnerability scan of 5 minutes. To conclude, the SenaNow has the fastest vulnerability scanner in the world with 99.98% accuracy, covering all the latest vulnerabilities within 30 hours. Over to you, Sakshi.
Thanks, Viret. So, shout out to the security team, security research team, who has done marvelous job in doing such a in-depth coverage as well as getting that speed of scans. Also, thank you, Virendra and Pooja, for doing in-depth analysis of vulnerabilities regarding CVEs, the products affected, but more than that, the effect and the impact of these vulnerabilities globally. So that was really very, very insightful. Moving on, I'm very much excited, and the most anticipated slide for me was Vulnerability predictions of 2023. Now, on observing the vulnerability trends over the years, our your security SecPod research team has predicted over 29,450 vulnerabilities in 2023. This prediction is made based on ARIMA, that is autoregressive integrated moving average model. Now, I would like to ask uh, uh, Virendra as well as Pooja, what do they think about this prediction?
I think I would take it fast. I think we are more or less accurate, and we would get to see like more of mobile device and IoT device vulnerabilities in 2023. Mainly because while we are concentrating so much on endpoints and servers and others, we are not actually looking at mobile devices. And also the I think the OS graph that Virendra shared did highlight that the highest number of vulnerabilities are in Android. So as and when more and more devices being connected to the internet, I think we would see more vulnerabilities there. Viru, you would like to add?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Pooja, yeah, it is going to increase for sure, at least as it's we have seen over the years from 2021, 22. It's gradually increasing. Even this year, we expect it to increase around 29 or 30K vulnerabilities this to 2023. And what kind of vulnerabilities? It is, yeah, cloud adoptions are increasing. So it will be more on the application which are related to cloud. And as Pooja mentioned, iOS, Android, these are also the user base is increasing rapidly. So there also attacker always think about how much impact they can cause, or how much coverage. When I say coverage, if more user base for the particular operating system or application, the more impact will be. So they will threat actors do conduct their own research to do the like to find vulnerabilities or exploit the vulnerabilities. So they do conduct the research and find those vulnerabilities, and at the same time security researchers are also there who try to defend. They also try to detect the vulnerabilities, but they don't misuse it. They inform the security vendors, and they do a proper disclosure. That way, it's the those vulnerabilities are getting fixed before threat actors make use of them. So yeah, going forward, even I expect it to reach around 30K.
Got it.
Uh,
Thanks. So I would want to understand, Pooja and Virendra, from each one of you regarding that. Okay, so my numbers are rising. I'm from an organization, my numbers are rising. How can I keep these vulnerabilities or keep the rising of these vulnerabilities at bay? How can I fight these vulnerabilities this year? Some tips?
So I think generally, as we all know, that humans are the weakest link. So you would ideally first start off with training people to follow secure practices, and we are seeing very sophisticated social engineering attacks, which more or less looks very genuine to even a person who is within the industry. So training users to actually look through it is one basic step I think every organization needs to be taking. Apart from that, having a solution that can deal with hybrid environments, because we are seeing all types of device in a network. In an environment, you'll have routers, you will have servers or desktops, you will have mobile devices, you will have everything in every network right now, and also most people are working remotely. So ensuring that you have a solution that can deal with this kind of environment would also make sure that you're secure and not breached. Viru, you would like
Yeah,
to add?
yeah, I would like to add few more points. As you mentioned, humans are weakest links in the cyber security chain. That is true, and yeah, we only way is to educate them about attacks and what kind of things. And apart from this, we should also look into vulnerability management. When I say vulnerability management, it includes compliance as well as vulnerabilities. So compliance, when I say compliance, it is like weak configuration. That is most people miss out, like configuring a web server with improper permission that can lead to sensitive information disclosures. Everybody has to understand that they need to make sure proper configurations are present in the endpoints or for the servers. That is one point. And second one is vulnerabilities. They need to earlier trend is like applying patch every 6 months or every once a year. That was a trend, but going forward, I think they should at least minimum once in a month they should patch it. If the vulnerabilities are critical, they should patch immediately. So that is one of the important things. If we follow these three things, compliance, the proper compliance, vulnerabilities, patching, and social engineering attack, with the help of educating the employees, it will, I think, 95% of the attacks can be blocked. So these are the few tips from my side.
Got it.
Over to you, Sai.
Thanks, Vedant and Pooja. So we now move on to our Q&A sessions. So, audience, if you have any questions to our experts, Virendra and Pooja, please do ask. In the meanwhile, Pooja and Virendra, I would, from each one of you, I would want to understand, according to you, which is the most dangerous vulnerability that all IT security teams should watch out for, and why?
Sakshi, I don't think this year, I'm sorry, 2022 was similar to the previous years. If you were to look at 21 or 20, we had the solar winds and log4j, which were huge. But with respect to 2022, fortunately or unfortunately, we've not had a similar episode. But keeping that aside, we still have seen huge number of RCEs, privilege escalation vulnerabilities, 0 days. So I think we already listed a bunch of these vulnerabilities. I would also like to add one of those, and we as well we have a lot of them in our report. Uh, One of them that I would like to mention. I would not state that it is a most dangerous, but what I'm trying to tell is all these are critical based on your environment, how you have set up your network, how your firewall is set up, how is your environment is configured. All those matter. What is present in your network. But I believe Folina would be one of those dangerous vulnerabilities, mainly because how easy it was to exploit it. And you did not, it is just you send a Word doc, all Office versions are affected, all your Windows machines are affected. So you have to just send a malicious Word doc through email. And it did not even require you to open the doc. If it was an RTF format, you just have to view it through your file explorer, and you would not know that there is a PowerShell code running in your program. All of it looked so genuine, and you could be attacked, and an attacker can be in your environment without you having any knowledge of it. I think that is one of the dangerous vulnerabilities that I would want to share. Viru?
Virendra?
Yeah, if I want to pick, if you ask me my view, which is the most dangerous vulnerability in 2022 from top 20 list, I would consider Atlassian products. It is not that it is the only one, but it's my perspective that Atlassian product, there were some 2 to 3 vulnerabilities which are unauthenticated RCE or unauthenticated bypass. Also, there was a vulnerability where cookies are not invalidated even if the password is changed, even with 2FA enabled, if enabled, as the cookies validity is 30 days. So the reason why, the reason is like, take an example, last one which I mentioned, like cookies are not invalidated when the password is changed. So what it means is like whenever password is changed, the cookie, whatever session cookie is set, it is valid for 30 days. So if threat actors were able to hold on to that cookie, and or somehow they were able to access that cookie, even if you change the password, still the cookie is valid, and using that cookie people can log into, and does not require 2FA, even though 2FA second factor or multi-factor is enabled, still using this session cookie, people can log in. And we also saw that these cookies were stolen, and it was being sold in the underground. So also why, one more reason, important reason, as per my view is, this Atlassian product includes Jira. So Jira is used to find bugs, which includes security bugs, which includes vulnerabilities, security bugs, along with the normal bugs as well. So whenever a vendor or a product being developed, they file those bugs. It could be security, it could be non-security. All the bugs will be there in the Jira. So if threat actor can use that session cookie to log into the system, or use authentication bypass to get into and see those security, especially I'm concerned about security bugs or the vulnerabilities which are being detected by the internal teams, or bug bounty programmers who detected, found those vulnerabilities, and those are possibly that those, or also all the details might be present in Jira. So threat actors can utilize those things and exploit their product, even though it's like a supply chain. I feel it's kind of a supply chain attack, possible supply chain attack I can see, because they can exploit. Uh, okay, the why supply chain I mentioned is, Atlassian product includes Bitbucket as well. So Bitbucket, what is it's used to control the source code, right? So if they were get hold of Bitbucket, they can inject malicious code, as we saw in the SolarWinds attack. They were able to inject some malicious DLL in the code, or DLL in the CI/CD pipeline. So similar things are possible. So when they were able to push these things, these malicious things in the CI/CD pipeline, and uh, uh, security vendor or the product vendor is unable to find those changes, and it gets shipped along with the product, and whoever is using that product, all of them will be affected. So this is similar to like supply chain attack I can see here. So these are the few reasons I consider these are this Atlassian product vulnerability is one of the most dangerous as per me.
Thanks, Pooja and Virendra. So we got a question from our audience. So they have asked, should we only prioritize, or should my team only prioritize patching the critical vulnerabilities, or we should patch all the vulnerabilities? So what are your thoughts about it, Pooja and Virendra?
Okay, like critical vulnerabilities are something that, like, if something is on fire, you first take care of that but that doesn't mean you ignore the low priority or the medium other vulnerabilities. They also need to be patched to ensure that there is absolutely no way an attacker can attack and can enter your environment. So low severity does not mean that there is no vulnerability. It just means that it could be difficult to exploit, or it is not very, the product is not commonly. There are various vectors that add to it, and the priority rating is assigned. But again, any vulnerability that is known needs to be patched at the earliest.
Okay, I would like to add a few more points what Pooja mentioned here. One thing I can see is if application is there is a critical vulnerability in the application. First thing we need to understand is if CV is meant like it is 9.8 or CVS score says it is very critical, but in your organization it also depends on where that product or application is deployed. Is it in a secure network? Is it accessible to world? It is accessible only to the internet network. So it depends on all these things. So when a vulnerability is assigned with a critical, they assume that they don't consider these factors. So in your organization you need to consider these factor which is specific to individual organizations. So after checking these factors, then you should check that whether you should go ahead and patch it or not. One quick thing I can say is if vulnerability is critical and it is accessible to via internet or to the outside world, you patch immediately. That is the first rule we should follow. Apart from if it is internal still critical, then you need to think how it should not affect your regular work. So you might take a little time to patch, but you should patch.
Thanks, Pooja, and thanks, Virendra, for clearing up the doubts. So here we are at the final endpoint moments of our webinar. So concluding this webinar, uh, uh, we are going to go ahead and state that our SecPod Sena Now Cyber Hygiene platform is an advanced quality management solution. Our any IT security teams use it to discover vulnerabilities, install patches, comply with regulatory standards, get asset exposure, implement security controls, and a lot more. You can get a free trial, or I would love to speak with you all in a demo by going to www.secpod.com. Once again, thanks Pooja and Virendra to give so much insights into this annual vulnerability report of 2022, the impact of the vulnerabilities, the products that are affected, and how it is going to affect IT security teams globally. It was very, very insightful. Again, coming to this audience, we will have a recorded version available on Bright Talk and YouTube channel. Please keep tuned to SecPod webcast. We will see you in our next session. Thanks for your valuable time. We wish you a happy time ahead. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
thank you everyone. Thank you guys. Bye.